Well, finally I'm back. And I haven't documented things in a long time because, to be frank, things have just gotten too real. To be frank, I've been so out of it. I'm still out of it right now, which we'll get into. That it's just like I almost died, passed a couple of times, and basically the 6 months past the last video I made, and the amount of drama, the journey has it's something you can't even write. It's truly unbelievable. So I'm going to get into the specifics of what happened and really try to provide a full picture. But that's going to take multiple videos. And to be frank, I want to be more coherent. I've just been slowly and steadily getting more coherent when I do that. But here's the gist of things. Over 4 years ago, when I got my first urinary tract infection, really the only explanation that was given to me is it had to be fistula. Ran repeat tests and didn't have any symptoms of fistula. So, in the limited amount of case studies on the internet of people that have a bladder fistula in men, the prognosis is, or you see, like I don't. This is why it's hard for me to make videos. Like the words don't come to me, which is not my normal. But point being, so they get urinary tract infections. They start developing symptoms like gas and even stool out of the penis, and it progresses from there. In my case, it seems like I had a fistula for years that wouldn't show up on tests, which, contrary to what doctors repeatedly told me, I mean, I knew this myself just by looking at the literature, that a lot of times it doesn't show up on tests, but it will have symptoms. And my GI surgeon, kept asking me, "Did you pass air out of your penis? Did you pass air out of your penis?" And it was always no. And it's just so bizarre because just one thing just leads to another endlessly. So I had major surgery. I got a urinary tract infection that was immune to IV antibiotics and oral antibiotics. I waited, God knows how long. It's an absolute miracle that I survived that, but I waited, and it was one of the most horrible experiences of my entire life. For phages to save my life. While I was being treated by the phages that worked at first, I hate to keep having to say my genitals, but air passed out and stool passed out for the first time ever, which that is not congruent with any of the stories I've heard. So now we have an underlying issue besides biofilm. It's an underlying issue that created biofilm. The biofilm had to be stopped or eradicated by the phages no matter what. So I killed off 2 biofilms, right? And I was still getting things in my urine. And then this symptom happened for the first time ever. And not only happened, it was so blatant and so intense. Went from never passing gas out of there to just so blatant. I don't need to go into details. So now I'm on this new odyssey. Series of tests, still can't diagnosis. I had to do a quote gamble of removing my J pouch because that's by far the most likely area a bladder fistula would be attached to. Turns out it wasn't a gamble, because by the time I even scheduled that surgery, I was in yet another life or death situation where my stomach looked like I was pregnant. There was no blockages, no anything, just like basically things had just completely failed. I had a seizure. I had a very severe infection, they told me, and that was basically the cause of it. And just, I couldn't go to the bathroom. It was extreme pain every day, and things just kept going downward and downward. While I was awaiting going through this test and figuring out what to do since the air came out of my genitals. I hope I'm making coherent sense. Again, this is why I'm waiting to do the more in-depth videos and just giving an overview now, because, to be frank, I've been tapering off the benzo. I'm at the lowest dose I've ever been, but I barely sleep. I mean, and it's just, I'm extremely anxious every day. It's hard to focus and get this right. Point is, I was just, the reason I said I almost passed 2 times is because from that urinary tract infection that would have, well, it was untreatable. Unless luckily I had the phage. Otherwise, it's just, and then, two, if I didn't have this surgery, I would have just went septic. Ironically, the same type of thing that happens with an infection, it would have passed. So, I've had this surgery over 3 months ago now, and just to get out any variables, it's like the Crohn's have improved very slowly, but I was extremely inflamed, right? So, wasn't a Crohn's disease. Well, it was, but indirectly. Wasn't any form of treatment I'm did differently. It just turned out that attached to my J pouch, which is basically an artificial colon, I got to save my life back when I was 20. And somehow or the other, it seems there was a fistula attached to that. And once that's been removed, unfortunately, it didn't give me much relief from the Crohn's symptoms itself. And unfortunately, I have to have a permanent ileostomy. But I really think that has saved my life. I still have to eradicate this nasty bacteria with phages that I had before the surgery. That's kind of popped in and out. Again, we're trying to go into too many details until later. But it seems too good to be true. And not only that, but there was other things that were literally getting at my throat, and that's why I didn't want to make video, because those issues alone were just incomprehensible. The amount of suffering, and on Easter Day, uh, completely unexpectedly, that came off my back, and it's just I really ask people whether I should talk about it in this way, because I don't know if it feels narcissistic to say that God helped me or to look for signs, but if there's ever signs of repentance and turning to Christ, I mean, this would be it. Not saying that's what happened. I don't know, but and I will tell you one thing I do know: is never ever stop going, no matter what you're going through, because it's been, when that treatment I was doing with basically the top urinary tract infection doctor in the United States, chronic urinary tract infection, failed, pulled out the suprapubic catheter. Ever since that day, I lost all hope. Like, there is nothing left. Then, and then everything seemed to confirm that. And then, out of nowhere, I mean, seems like my life is saved. Okay, I'm gonna get a lot more into the details, but good news. For really the first time in a, a long time, I'll just say two, I made a couple of these videos, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself, because they're blending into one in my head. But if I haven't said it already, I'm on the lowest dose of my benzo, and that's been really frustrating, because it's kind of like things will start to stabilize. I'll have these good habits cultivated. Then whenever I make a cut, don't sleep. By the time it hits 2, I'm just like in severe panic, anxiety, what have you, 2 in the afternoon. And my cognition is lower. But that's really the next biggest thing. Now I've got all this stuff off my back. Also having such a major surgery was tough mentally, though it wasn't as bad as I thought. I thought it could trigger some type of PTSD episode, and it really didn't. So that's what I'm doing right now, and that's partially why I'm finding things hard. It seems like I take a step back, but I'm really taking a step further, because if you're not familiar with benzodiazepines, they're the worst thing. It's not even close how horrible long-term use of that is. And I really started that when I lost all hope. So that's what I'm doing right now. I know it doesn't look like it, but I've actually been putting on some weight on carnivore now. I'm also having to just go through that adaptation process. But God, there's just so much more to say about things. And I'm going to put out those videos and also start logging again. Finish out the dying logs, and I think start going to the thriving logs. But this is definitely gonna be a slow process. But what can you expect when you're literally on death's door once again and have these substances? Obviously, I had to be on opiates on and off from the surgery. I know I said it's gonna be a short video, but like I really need to talk about in this stuff for 2 hours. So this is short. But all I can say is finally I can report some very good news. And like I said, I mean, all I can say is it felt like God. And on a secular level, it's just another reminder that no matter how hopeless things are, you can just keep going, and you don't know what's going to happen. That's obviously for good and for bad, but I appreciate you watching, and I just it's just it's unbelievable, truly. Yeah, much love.